welcome everyone. Thank you for joining. I am Cristina Mancarella here from Trust IT. We are the dissemination partner in NGIatlantic, and I'm talking to you from Pisa today. And together with me, there's my colleague Ruben Tognetti. He will give a brief presentation of the project. And we have Jim Clark, our coordinator of NGIatlantic from Waterford Institute of Technology. He will drive you through the fifth open call and the priority topics. Some of you have probably already applied to previous call or know already the project and the topics. We have some news for this fifth open call. And then we have Deep Mehdi here today and Gurdeep Singh from the National Science Foundation of US. We will go through some of the most common, well, frequently asked questions. They're already common, but we will go through the even most common questions because we see some recurring doubts among our applicants. So we've collected them to help you out in your application. And most importantly, we have an amazing set of presentations from projects today, which are the projects funded in our third open call. And 7 of them will be speaking today, will be presenting their innovative ideas and experiment, and also if they have any tip to share with you for your application and what made them successful. It's great that we have this possibility to have them presenting today. And so, Ruben, if you go to the next slide, we will end at 18. And yeah, so here are the speakers I just mentioned. You can see them. Nice to have so many smiley faces. And if we go to the next slide, there's a brief overview of the project. So we have edge flooding, exploiting edge computing for real-time monitoring and detection of flash floods. And we have Carlo Vallati from the University of Pisa. We have Rohit Bohara from Aspin with physical unclonable functions for identification of large-scale distributed IoT assets. I'm going to read them in case anyone has troubles seeing the screen. And we have experimental assessment of fast quantum key distribution with Mark Rees-Ramirez from UPC, Atlantic eVision presented by Sachin Sharma of Technical University of Dublin, Transatlantic SSI Interop with Marco Sabadello from Danube Tech and Ganesh Hanan from Digital Bazaar, deployment and evaluation of a 5G open spatial computing platform in a dense urban environment with Alina Kadlubski. And finally, we have Felix Freitag from University of Catalonia and Lu Wei, University of Michigan, with adaptive decentralized federated learning in wireless mesh network. Just some housekeeping information. You have a question and answer panel. In case you want to drop us a question, feel free to use that. And you have a chat panel in case you want to communicate with the speakers, with us. So for any question, feel free to use those. Alternatively, you can raise your hand and we will pass you the microphone. And finally, we'd like to remind you that the webinar is being recorded. So the recording will be made available right after the event. And now I'm going to pass the floor to Ruben for a short presentation of NGIatlantic. Thank you, Ruben.
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Ruben, and together with Christine and Jim, we're working on NGIatlantic. Just a second, let me go on presentation mode again. But let me move this here. There we go. Okay.
Ruben, we have that white line again.
Oh, on the top, or?
It's right in the middle.
Okay, let me move this here then.
There you go.
Here we go. Okay, so thank you very much, Christina, also for presenting the, we're very glad here to have the some project coordinators with the presentation. You can see them in the slide. and we will introduce them later for the presentation. So about the project, we started in January 2020, NGIatlantic.eu, and basically is the project is about bridging collaboration between European and American partners in the NGI fields. And we organize 5 open calls in total. We are now in the 5th one. And each of them, we had like a window time of 2 up to 3 months for applicants to submit the projects and get the projects funded together with the American partners. So some numbers about the 4 open calls we had. So here on the right, you can see the total of the 4 open calls. We had 97 applications received with a total budget request of over 10 million euros. And out of these, we awarded 28 projects with a budget allocation with 2,454,000 euros. We had total numbers of European 34 partners and 35 American partners. On the left, you can see the ratio between the requested amount and also the number of applications received and the projects approved. And as you can see, the ratio actually went quite good in all of them, with some peak of, for example, the last one, the open call 4, where we had a ratio of 1 out of 2.5. Later, we have like a section dedicated to the NSF. But as is written here, since open call 3, the NSF made a dedicated funding system that works together with also NGIatlantic. Now we are in the 5th open call, is now open, and the deadline to present your application will be at the end of March. The system is quite easy. You just have to go to our website and register. And then once you register, you will see that in your top menu, you have a My Dashboard option. If you enter there, you will have showing the 5th open call. You go on Apply Now. So you enter the form, and the form is quite easy. Basically, you just need to fill in all your information, and whenever you want, you can save your draft. And when you're ready to submit your application, you would just, there's the option to submit. Please consider once the application is submitted, cannot be added anymore. So be sure that everything is filled in before submitting. If you have any trouble, of course, just write us in case, for example, you submitted an application that was not finished. There are some warnings in the forms, for example, the word limits. The limit that is written in the form for the words, it's not, it's just a suggestion, it's not a real limit, but it's because that's the perfect length to get like a good application that is also will be easier to be evaluated. So please follow the lines, but just in case you have to write a little bit more, the limit of the words is not strict. We have some recommendation that you will find them at the very top of the form. So because like in the last open call, we got reported that some applicants had some data loss while submitting. And of course, we understand that this could be a very impacting issue if once you have everything ready, you try to submit and you lose all your application. So we made a study in the platform and in the application. We couldn't really replicate all of these issues, so we decided to implement a mini guide on how to be on the safe side with your application, not to minimize the risk of data loss. So remember to save your draft frequently while you're working on your application. Please, when you're copying and pasting from your text, for example, Word, not the kind of writing applications or softwares, please be sure to clean your elements before putting them in the form. When you're uploading your images, or always compress them, because the system, of course, sometimes you know, you might have some images that are really, really big, and the system might have some problems with uploading those images. So to be on the safe side, try to compress those before uploading. And about images, the best thing for you is to upload all of them just once you have the application ready to be submitted. So as the very last thing, you upload all the images. As you can see on our website, we also have a twinning lab where you can, it's like a showcase for your NGI projects. And it's a great tool to find partners for US and EU partners in case you're looking for one. And also we are rebranding the Tuning Lab, and we'll have soon a new interface that will make this even easier. So stay tuned, because soon we will show you a new Tuning Lab. Finally, if you haven't yet, it's better if you can subscribe, if you subscribe to our newsletter, or if you follow us on Twitter, because there is where we'll get all the latest news for our events and also future projects. Okay, and now I'll pass the floor to Jim. He will introduce the 5th open call that is currently running. And as Christina said, if you have any question, you can either raise your hand or you can type in the chat. Thank you all. And Jim, the floor is yours.
Okay, can you stop sharing?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Can you see my screen okay?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not in presentation mode, but we can see.
Okay. Can you just remind
Up, top
me?
left, right.
Top
Yes.
right. Okay. Oh yeah. How's that?
Yes, if you close the top, yes. That's
Okay. Okay. Thank you everyone for coming today. And I'm going to talk you through the 5th open call. Pardon the mistake in the header there. So as we've already told you, the call is open until the end of March, and there's information available at the website here, and also information about the National Science Foundation Dear Colleague letter, which will be presented later. And we also had a workshop which was recorded, and we invite you to watch this. Now, of course, at that particular time, we didn't have all of the topics completely lined up, but many of the topics in Open Call 5 were discussed and were presented, and there was a lot of good, valuable information there in that workshop. So you should be able to gain some good insights about that. So in terms of the open call targets and the topics, similar to our first 4 open calls, we have 2 different categories. The first being the EU-US experimental platforms interconnection, and then the second category being experiments with the key enabling technologies in 5 NGI topics. And I'll go through each of these in a moment. And one thing we just want to note here, that for Open Call 5, the funding range is from 25,000 to 50,000. So that's a change from the previous open call. So please keep that in mind. And then the durations are minimum 3 months, maximum 6 months. And we expect 5 to 7 projects to be funded In terms of the category B topics, as we've been doing all along in NGIatlantic, we work closely with our sister NGI RIA projects that are funding EU-based projects with their open calls, and we check with them on a regular basis to see how the results are coming. And we pick the topics that have the most amount of results, and where the innovators can then team up with some excellent US partners, and then take the results to the next level and carry out experiments on experimental platforms in the US and also in the EU. So the first 4 topics are topics that we've had already in the past, and I'll go through each and every one of these in a bit more detail. And then the 5th topic is a new topic that comes from the Horizon 2020 ICT 54 call on blockchain in next generation internet. So there's 3 projects, 3 NGI projects, TrueBlow, NGI Assure, and OntoChain. And we carried out a survey with the projects, and we found that they have some really good results coming out of their open calls. So therefore, we've added this as a topic in our 5th open call. So in terms of the first category, we started this particular category after our 2nd open call, and that's to enable mature experimental platforms to interconnect with one another. So enabling the twinning of the platforms and the experimental infrastructures. And this is with the view that they would enable experimentation on both sides of the Atlantic to interconnect with each other, to offer their facilities on a continuous basis to the community of experimenters and application developers in any NGI-related topics. And then it would be expected that they could be used in the experimentation of NGI projects, both present and future. So these could either be sort of standalone interconnections, so experimental platform to experimental platform. And then we have found as well, and we try to promote as well through the Twinning Lab and through our coaching activities, if we know of experimental platform that are interconnected already, and we find a set of innovators looking for a specific experimental platform, we can do some bridging activities or twinning activities between the two. So, so we would welcome crossover from this category to a key enabling technology project as well. Then in terms of the 5 key enabling technologies, so the first one is on strengthening trustworthiness and resilience of the internet. And this topic will focus on the experimentation of results related to increasing trustworthiness and resilience of the internet. So this is looking at issues such as identity, for example, self-sovereign identity, authentication and authorization, traceability, privacy and confidentiality related to personal and non-personal interactions, and flow of sensitive information over geographic boundaries, federated, collaborative, and or decentralized technologies supporting internet-wide e-identities, and so on. And it's also looking at resilience issues, looking at approaches for monitoring, detection, and mitigation to counter large-scale disruptions and failures, and ongoing cyber attack intrusions, and support for crisis situations, looking at redundancy and dynamic reconfigurations, network isolation and virtualization techniques, situational awareness, survivability, and self-healing approaches. Then another topic is the open internet architecture renovation. So this is focusing again on experiments supporting the communities of developers in ensuring the internet architecture evolution towards better efficiency, scalability, security, and resilience. So it could involve the auditing, testing, and improving of protocols and open source software and hardware that are used to manage the internet with renewed design goals, including isolation of contingencies, redundancies, self-repair, disruption tolerance, transparency, better real-time behavior, and energy efficiency. And looking to roll out at internet scale should be assessed as part of the proposed solutions. Then our third topic is a quite important one on greening the internet, a sustainable and climate-friendly NGI. And this topic was brought to the table through our external advisory group. And it's a topic that has been identified by our sister project, the NGI Forward project, where they've identified sustainable and climate-friendly internet as one of the key NGI topics for 2030, and they have a white paper and report on this, which we share the link here in the presentation. We invite you to have a look at that. And so it's looking at, again, experiments of results related to use case implementation of innovative internet technologies and transparency mechanisms on US-EU experimental platforms shown to fight against the climate change with significant improvement of energy efficiency, looking at carrying out measurements to create awareness of environmental impact of the internet, and also promotion of technologies that help to reduce the energy consumption and carbon emissions. So obviously this is quite important, especially from the perspective of the large, medium and larger scale experimental platforms. And many of the platforms in the US and in the EU are looking at obviously reducing energy consumption and carbon emissions. So this topic welcomes applicants that can provide an experiment with transparency mechanisms and sustainability metrics on the environmental cost of the internet. Then this is a topic that came specifically from our colleagues in the NSF because it's a topic of importance in a number of their platforms, including the DETER platform, and then most of the other platforms as well cover these topics. So this is internet data sharing and interoperable services. So it's addressing the challenges of sharing network data siloed in different internet regions across geographic boundaries and enabling trusted internet services by composition and orchestration of globally distributed services. So it's looking to address secure and privacy preserving data sharing, which is particularly important to address the rising cyber threats and incidents. It's looking also at the sharing of internet data to support continuous monitoring and data-driven analysis critical to identify impending ongoing attacks and support traceback and attributions and intelligently respond to internet events. And then also looking at experiments related to such cross-domain data sharing challenges to enable cyber threat identification, risk assessment, and incident management, and enabling secure and interoperable internet services are of particular interest. And just to say that in contrast with the service and data portability topic, this relates to the role of data sharing for the purposes of cybersecurity rather than for services and applications perspective. Okay, then our new topic on blockchain and distributed ledger technologies for NGI. So it's looking to create opportunities to enhance services and processes in both the public and private sectors, notably for providing better control of data by citizens and organizations, reducing fraud, improving record keeping, access, transparency, and auditability within and across borders at multiple levels, the technology, infrastructure, and application levels. And there are a number of key areas. And again, as I mentioned earlier, this is broken down similar to the way the ICT 54 topics, projects are broken down. So if you want to find out more about that, you can look at the websites which are accessible at NGI.eu. And then, as I mentioned, the projects are TrueBlow, NGI Assure, and Onto Chain. So it's looking across three areas in particular. So a new software ecosystem for trusted, traceable, and transparent ontological knowledge management, reinforcing the European blockchain ecosystem to develop a more human internet, and then looking at innovative results to fight misinformation on social media with an emphasis on using blockchain and distributed ledger technologies. Okay. So those are the 5 topics, and now I invite my colleague Deep Mehdi from the National Science Foundation, who will present the funding opportunities for the U.S. partners. Thank you, Deep.
Thank you, Jim. It's my pleasure to talk about the funding opportunities from the side of National Science Foundation in partnership with Europe EC, and in particular the NGIatlantic program. So what we have done is that we created a program, sort of like a twinning program. And in our terminology, we created in the context of what is known as a Dear Colleague Letter, or in short, DCL. And this DCL was created almost a year ago. Yes, and the number is DCL 21-048. It's for, to provide the funding to US researchers who are partnering with NGIatlantic. If you see what it says, is that it says the word supplemental fund. In the NSF terminology, what it means is that if you have an existing award or a grant from NSF, you can request additional money, supplemental fund, to go with that to be able to continue a project or kind of extend from your current project that is being funded. And what we did in this DCL was that we used the supplemental funding option to allow existing awardees to be able to request supplemental fund with from the NSF side. And we actually, and those are called active NSF funded researcher, as highlighted there. And we limited it to 2 programs. And those are actually 2, although I am using the word limited, but these are actually very big programs in terms of number of researchers funded in the US through this program. One is our CNS, Computer and Network Systems Core program. And second one is Secure and Trustworthy Cyberspace, or SATC, in short, are programs. And fundings are available up to $100,000 as requesting from the NSF US side, or it has to be to not more than the 20% of the original active award they have. So for example, if you have an active award that's is in the size of $400,000, they can then go only up to $80,000 for that one. And so in terms of that information about the size of the award, active award, the program. Those are the three important pieces about requesting the fund. So in the write-up when they submit to NSF site, which is actually described in the DCL 21-048, they need to actually discuss briefly about how this is going to be, activity is going to be conducted. And then what they do is that they need to attach what they have submitted with the NGIatlantic as an attachment to the document. So they don't have to create a completely new set of document. And so let's go to the next slide, please. So what we do in terms of the evaluation process to make it, to streamline it rather, that we said that there won't be any difference in terms of the evaluation process between the funded and the partners. All proposals will get equal opportunities and be selected based on exclusively on this merit. What we did that we let the European side lead, and so when they have a particular deadline, and we said that it has to be within a week after that deadline. So when we come to open call number 5, which means that for the NSF side, they need to submit by 7th of April for supplemental fund request. And we have highlighted here in this thing that what are the things is needed. You need to provide a summary of the active research award, what it is the goal of the original award, and accomplishments spanning intellectual merit and broader impact. By the way, both intellectual merit and broader impact are dictated by the National Science Board that oversees NSF. And then you need to discuss how this award is related to the proposed work under the NGIatlantic open call. And it's about only a page, about a page needs to be done. And then, as I said just a minute ago, that you don't need to redo everything. We made it simple that what you do is that what you submit a week before to the NGIatlantic open call, you actually attach that PDF file to that document. And then, of course, you need to add the bioskills of the EU partner. If it was not in that PDF document, then you want to actually add that part. And then for the NSF side, they have to do the budget. As I said earlier, it is up to 20% of their original award, or maximum $100,000. They need to say what exactly they're going to do. Is it for some supporting student? Is it for travel to go to visit their partner in the Europe and European countries? And so all of those things are important. So again, you can actually go to that particular DCL. The link is given at the bottom of this slide to be able to read further about it. But if you don't remember the link, you can always just Google it, NSF space 21-048 is going to come up pretty much right away for that. Shall we go to next slide? There are a couple of things here. Before I go there, I want to mention one important thing about it to kind of emphasize that a question that comes up that there are European teams that have a US partners that they have actually submitted requests. If the US partner has no active award, we cannot support them at all. So usually what that means is that, let's say a particular open call, the NGIatlantic funds, let's say 8 projects, and it may be only 4 from the NSF side, because the other 4 do not have active award on the NSF side to be able to support it. Okay, so let me talk about a few additional information. That is actually also available, because for which you do not need any additional funding from the NSF side. We have 2, we call it research cloud platform, NSF, the Cloud Lab and Chameleon, that was listed, the links are listed there. And that one, actually, anybody, the European collaborators and their partners can use it with the US collaborators and then submit requests. And those are actually very easy. You write about a one-page, not even a one-page, two-paragraph thing about what you want to do in this cloud infrastructure, and to be able to say how many machines you need there. Do you want the GPUs? We are now adding FPGAs to this platform. So you can see, depending on what it is that you need. A second important point about these two particular platforms is that it's a bare metal platform. It's not a virtual machines. It's not virtual machine like that you want to actually use it through like a cloud commercial cloud provider. In fact, it is very, very difficult to get bare metal access on a commercial cloud providers, because that's not their core business. Their core business in virtual machines there. So if your research needs, bare metal access, these are excellent platform, and we support them. Each of them are $10 million platform. We funded over a 4-year period. They're on the phase 3 part of it. Then Fabric is a new mid-scale research infrastructure platform. Mid-scale is a NSF terminology. What that means is that the budget for mid-scale in terms of infrastructure is between $6 million to $20 million. So Fabric is almost at the top of that in terms of a $20 million. So this is under construction. We funded in fiscal year 19, the federal fiscal year for US. Our fiscal year is starts from October 1st to September 30th. And they are actually operating right now on the phase 1 deployment. You can go to Fabric testbed and find out what it is possible. And with the Fabric platform that's being done, the phase 2 will be added some very soon, later this year actually. So we are in March right now, and that's by original plan. And with the Fabric testbed, they also have what is called a Fabric experimenters workshop. So you might want to actually register to workshops that comes up. This shows is an old one. Obviously, there was one in December. We actually have it about every 6 months. So keep an eye on it and try to see what people are proposing and wanting to do it. And that's also a free platform. You can actually use it. It's a network platform. So distinction between the first two platforms, which is the future edge platform, cloud platform, versus the Fabric is a core platform. The important thing is that the Fabric platform actually is connected, also being connected to Cloud Lab and Chameleon. They are not fully operationally federated yet, but that's one of our goals. So let me talk about the next item there, the power platform. Cosmos is one of them, Powder, Renew, and Airpo. And we have a new one called ARA. I forgot to add it to this slide. And we'll update this slide before Jim makes it available to the community. And I take the blame for not updating this particular slide. And ARA was funded more recently. This is for more rural IoT space or agriculture space where you can actually do the advanced wireless platform. So those platforms are also available, and there's some additional supplemental fund under the power platform that is also can be twinned with the NGIatlantic platform. So for that, there's a separate DCL, that's the NSF 20-046. If you go to the DCL, actually it lists my name, because when it was created, I was part of that program, but I no longer handle it. But if a PI, we use the terminology PI in the US in the context of NSF. PI stands for Principal Investigator. And I believe in the EC European terminology, you call it coordinator. I believe that's what the name it is. And so if the PI contacts me, seeing my name, I will connect you to the right program directors in our group who actually are now handling that. That's also another way to be able to do it. And this is especially important if you have an active award on the NSF side that doesn't fit into CNS core or the SATC programs I talked about, because we have many other programs that is funded, especially in the context of power. There's a program called SWIFT program. More recently, we did a RINGS program. So those are potentially possible for the to use it for with this power platform. So they can request that with NGIatlantic tuning that is possible. So I wanted to kind of distinguish between these two programs. So depending on who you are doing US partner with, especially if it is a wireless space, you can actually do it through this second DCL to be able to request supplemental fund from the NSF side. Next slide, please, Jim.
Just one quick question on this, Deep. I
Yes.
understand for this one, the maximum amount is 50K, or yeah, 50,000 US dollars. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct.
Okay.
That's a good point. Thank you for reminding me about that.
Okay. Well, it actually matches up quite nicely with the fifth open call. In fact, that amount. So
yeah, no, that's very good. So although we said to $100,000 in our original open call from, I mean, DCL from a year ago, we also want to have a budget to be in the similar range that NGIatlantic is funding. Budget in the similar range, what I mean is that in terms of the actual numeric value, not doing the conversion between euros and US dollar. So just to kind of keep it in that, keep that in mind. And there have been cases where we have actually reduced the budget when we awarded it because we felt like it is, you know, we wanted to be some way compatible in that range. Yeah, very good point. Thank you for bringing that up. Is there another slide? Yes, the next slide, I believe so.
Hold on, sorry.
Something happened.
Yes, I went the wrong way.
Yeah, that's correct. You went backward.
There we go.
There are other programs that we do on in the context of international activities, and well, IRNC is one of that, International Resource and Education Network Connection. And the Fabric platform that I talked about has actually got additional funding. They call it Fabric Across Border, or FAB in short. That is actually connecting to Europe, to CERN, Switzerland, for example, all the way to South America, to the telescope we have in Chile, and on the west side to University of Tokyo. So this is important for us to reach to a broader, through the network connectivity to a broader RNE network, rather, to be able to do a number of different experimentation possible. There is actually a new program that just got announced called PIRE. PIRE has been done before. It's program for international research and education, and I think the deadline is coming up soon. And I don't run it. It is run from the Office of International Science and Engineering at the NSF. So it just popped in my mind that I should mention that, and I will make a note here to kind of update that information there. And maybe I'll post it into the Q&A box, that information, once I Google it after I'm done with this one. I believe that's it from my side, Jim, unless, you know, if there's something, quick question anybody has.
Thank you, Deep.
Thank you.
Right. It doesn't look like there's any particular questions yet on that, but
there was a question in the chat, Jim. I'm not sure, since
yes.
there is no, yeah, if you want to address now.
Yes, sure. Okay.
Good idea.
Yeah, the estimated start date for the fifth call projects, actually we have to update one of the previous slides. The end date of our project is the 31st of December of 2022. And so if we work it backwards, the projects, the open call projects for open call 5 will be finishing at the very latest in, October or maybe middle of October. So with that in mind, we will be starting the projects in around the sort of April or May timeframe. Okay, and the end dates will be in 2022. Okay, they will not be in 2023. Okay, I hope that answers the question.
Jim, if I may add it to
Yes.
on our side. In our side, they get a little bit of more leeway because it is a part of their original active grant. So if that grant has a 1-year cycle from today, they could go to the March. So that we cannot restrict it just because it's supplement for NGIatlantic because it's NSF rule. So just to make that clear from the NSF side.
Okay. I just have one question for you, Deep, about the PAWR supplement. I know with the 21048 DCL, it's within 1 week after submission. But as I understand it, for the PAWR, excuse me, it's a little more flexible, that it's an open call. So, would you recommend that the projects wait on that one until they get the results, or would you recommend that they would actually apply, soon after the EU side applies? What's your feeling on applying for the PAWR TCL?
That's a very, very good question, actually. I'm glad you brought it up. And if you actually look at that, in fact, we created that, 2 years back. It does say that there's a March 15 deadline in each fiscal year. So I would strongly recommend doing it. Let's say today is March 2nd. You do it. There's a little bit of a leeway with that one, but you don't want to wait till that you receive the award from NGIatlantic. The reason is that by that time, it will be too late in our NSF fiscal year to see if any budget left to be able to fund you. So if you submit it ahead of time, at the same time as you are doing it, again, I would suggest that within a week, and first by contacting the program officers who handle the PAWR solicitor, DCL, and they will be aware of it. They know it's in their stack, and they know how it actually. And they sometimes have more additional questions because their process is slightly different of how to evaluate than we do it. So you don't want to wait for that. Second thing I want to point out that these are only for projects that's related to wireless related. So for those ones that you wanted to use the power, supplement that you want to follow their guideline and then not wait, especially not wait till what it is. In fact, if you know with an NGIatlantic open call that you're going to planning to submit something, I would strongly encourage sending an email out to the program directors before March 15th and saying, look, there's this one coming up and we plan to do it. Let us know what information that you needed. I would strongly recommend doing it. Very good question, Jim.
Okay, all right. But I guess it's still important to point out that if your US partner, excuse me, is a grantee in the other two programs that Deep mentioned, that probably the better one to go for would be the specific DCL for NGIatlantic.
That's correct. That's correct.
Whereas the PAWR would be if your partner is not a grantee in that specific one, but that they are in the wireless domain.
That is correct.
Yeah.
And second thing is that I want to add it that the PAWR does the supplement DCL, they do a separate evaluation. They may not even fund you, even your NGIatlantic partner got funded. That's possibility is there if they don't think it is a strong amount, strong in terms of what proposing to use the platform for experimentation.
Okay. Thank you, Deep. There's another question about a breakdown of how many applications you have received in the previous open calls for the first 4 topics. Yes, we do have this information. We don't have it right now in this slide set, but we can add it directly after, and it will be in the slide set. And I believe it's in fact on our website. We do break them down by topics for each of the open calls. And the one thing I want to point out here is that we do not give any instructions to the evaluators to pick and choose any of them based upon, a certain percentage of the topics in the open call. So they're not really evaluating per se across, to get some sort of a balance across the topics. They're evaluating on merit alone. Okay. Okay, I hope that answers it okay, but we will certainly provide the information. We have presented this, in fact, in previous events, so we have those charts for you, but we just don't have it in today's slides. Okay.
Jim, there's a new question there. Would you like to answer that?
Yes, I see. Okay, considering the call closes on the 31st, would you be able to review in 1 week then? Because the projected start. I'm sorry, what I meant to say before was the evaluations are starting on the 1st of April, and the obviously the projects will be starting in mid-May or in the June timeframe. Okay, sorry, I misspoke when I said April. The evaluations are being done in April. Sorry, that was my mistake. I didn't count backwards too
Okay.
well. Okay.
Okay.
Thank
By the
you.
way, Jim, I just posted to the chat the NSF PIRE program, and I just realized there is more on the challenges in climate change and clean energy, not related to next generation internet. Just to
Okay.
that's partly why I was not familiar with it. So, but I for somebody this might be there might be a connection there. So I thought I'll let you know.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. That's very good. Okay. So with that, I'll continue on with. I'm going to go through a couple of important questions or helpful hints, let's say, and then we will have our presentations from the projects, and then if there's time afterwards, we can have some more FAQs, but just some important things based upon previous open calls. I just wanted to point out that as I mentioned before, we have this multi-stream approach to attract the experimental platforms to interconnect as well for future projects. And again, you can find some of the information on our twinning lab, or you can perhaps even make contact with ourselves if you have any questions about the experimental platforms that are out there, and you could perhaps interconnect with the additional topics or brainstorm continuously and selected with the US NSF involvement based on their NGI related programs. We have the dedicated opportunity for the NSF funding that we just heard about. But please note that the calls are open to all US-based partners, even without those without DCL funding. So we're open to all. And then on the EU side as well, I want to point out that even though, as I mentioned before, we're continuously checking with our sister NGI projects, the NGIatlantic is not just open for the innovators that are funded in their open calls. We are open to everyone. It's not a closed club, and we're open to any EU innovators that would like to team up with a US partner to run experiments with any of the NGI topics that are in the open call. And then due to the alignment of the funding between EU and US, we have a focus on minimum 3 months and maximum 6 months duration, and with a maximum budget of 50,000 euros this time. And this was mainly because we have a greater emphasis on funding more innovators and larger numbers of projects. Okay, so we've moved away from the sort of larger funded projects that we had in the first open call. Then there are some new requirements that we like to point out. So the declaration of honor is required to be submitted with the application. Now, it only has to be signed by the EU coordinator. However, the US team must include a signed letter of support within the DOH, and the template for that is available to you. It's very straightforward, okay, but it has to be submitted with the application by the deadline. And then we do ask for the past and or present NGI applications and EU H2020 applications. And this is done purely for statistical purposes. The European Commission in this NGI initiative are very conscious of trying to get more innovators involved that wouldn't normally be part of the EU H2020 and also Horizon Europe, obviously, systems, okay, because they feel that these are the kind of innovators that can really help in the development of this next generation internet. So, but they are keeping statistics on, for example, how many of the innovators that are being funded in all of the NGI open calls, not just ours, but all of them, have not been involved in H2020 before, or Horizon Europe, or whatever before, even FP7. And because they want to see whether they are attracting these innovators into the NGI initiative. So don't worry, it's not we're not using this information in the review process. It's only for statistical information that we're asking for. Okay. Then this was another one that we started in Open Call 3, that the general agreement, which is for the winning projects, they would be signing a GA or general agreement with the coordinator of NGIatlantic. And apart from the data such as start date, finish date, and things like that, it's non-negotiable. So please review this before submission and make sure you are okay with it, as there will be strictly no negotiations at a later stage. In the first 2 open calls, we had negotiations because we had to take on board some lessons learned with all the different types of stakeholders involved. So we feel we've done all that in the first 2 open calls. So we now feel that we have a GA that fits every single type of organization, and we really cannot spend any more time in the negotiation process. So please, all the relevant documents, the template for the GA can be found in the supporting documents. So please have a look at this, have your legal and financial departments have a look at this, before submission. Okay, then we've also added some additional fields to include resources for multi-team EU applications. And then we have a clearer format of downloadable PDF version for the submitted applications. And these can be easily converted to a Word document in case you need this. And some previous applications did need this. And of course, as Deep said, the PDF version can be used for the NSF DCL as well, which is very convenient. Okay, so this one now, because the COVID-19 situation is improving, is one I just wanted to cover today. So, what are the types of travel envisaged? So we've been saying that we've been recommending 2 travels because our experience from some of the US participants is that they would prefer for the EU partner to be involved in the experiment setup, and then any sort of final test and results. So we've been saying if you want to try to include 2 travels, that should be fine. But the only caveat is that please continue to watch the space in relation to any remaining travel restrictions and requirements, for example, vaccination and/or testing requirements. I know for a while there, I was in the US over the holidays, and the day I came back was the same day that the Irish government lifted the testing requirements. But if you were to travel back from Ireland to the US, you still had to be tested. So they didn't have sort of reciprocal situations. So you just want to still find out about the specific requirements between your countries. Okay. And just another one that has come up from time to time is that the application is made by the lead EU team member, and the funding will be limited to coverage of the work to be carried out by the EU partner as per the EU-US agreement. And then if you require more than 1 team partner, that's okay. And just, you must justify this in your application, and then you must break down the information about each partner, the roles of each partner and the person months for each partner. Okay, in terms of the funding of it, though, it's done similar to the other programs where the funding will go to the coordinator, and then the coordinator will then be in charge of the payments to the other team partners. And we also suggest that there's a consortium agreement with the partners. Okay. So with that now, we would like to switch to the presentations from the projects, and then if there's time later, we can do some more frequently asked questions or answer some more questions. And if not, there's the slide set will be available, and it has many other FAQs. Okay. So Christina, did you want to take over from here?
Thank you, Jim. Thanks a lot, all of you, for your great presentations. We now start quickly. We're a couple of minutes late, so we'll start right away with Carlo Vallati from University of Pisa. And Carlo is presenting, as I mentioned before, his project Edge Flooding on edge computing for real-time monitoring and detection of flash floods. Carlo, I'll leave you the floor, and let me know if there's an issue with the screen sharing.
Sure. Thank you very much, Christina, for your introduction. Let me share my screen. Okay. Can you see my presentation?
Yes, not in presenting mode, but we can see it.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you, Christina, for your kind introduction. I'm Carlo Vallati, Associate Professor at the University of Pisa. and I am the coordinator of this project that was funded under the third open call. The project is a joint project between the University of Pisa, Italy, and the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, UMBC in the United States. The main vision of the project is to, the main goal of this collaboration is to design a low-cost and reliable monitoring system to detect flash floods in real time via image analysis, exploiting machine learning techniques to analyze the images coming from video surveillance cameras. The starting point for the project was a prototype of the system developed by UMBC. The prototype was a cloud-based prototype. The architecture is pretty simple. On one side, you have smart cameras deployed around a river or an area that it is prone to flash floods. Those smart cameras are connected to the internet through, for instance, a 4G connection or a cellular connection or whatever. Those cameras continuously offload their images continuously through the internet to an analysis service running on a cloud computing platform. This image analysis service also analyzes data from social media in order to enrich the analysis and raise an alarm if a flood is coming. This centralized architecture that is cloud-based has some limitations that are mainly coming from the fact that images need to be uploaded continuously over the internet. So if network outages occur, the image analysis process is stopped and data is continuously offloaded through the internet. So it might be an issue also in terms of cost. The edge flooding experiment aims at analyzing the possibility of using a different approach, an approach based on edge computing. The idea is to move the image analysis from the cloud to an edge node installed in proximity of the smart camera in order to minimize the data that is transmitted, thus improving reliability and reduce costs. Our goal is to carry out a set of experiments in order to assess the viability of this kind of configuration where the majority of the image analysis processing is performed at the edge. Our idea is, during the project, the first thing that we did was to extend the original platform towards our microservice architecture. So the original platform could be broken down into subsystems. One of them could be deployed on an edge system. For our experiments, we are using two different testbeds, one grid 5000, some nodes from the grid 5000 testbeds in order to emulate the cloud layer, and other nodes from the virtual world testbeds in order to emulate the edge layer. During our experiments, we measure a large set of KPIs in order to analyze the feasibility of this kind of approach. This is the website of our project, and this is my email if you have any questions.
Thank you very much, Carlo, for the great presentation. And we actually switched 2 slots in the agenda in the meantime. So I'm now passing the floor to Transatlantic SSI Interop with Marco Sabadello from Danube Tech. And yeah, thanks, Marco. And I'll leave you, Marcos, sorry, the floor. Thanks. We can see your slides.
You're muted, Marcus.
Yeah, Marcus, I'm not sure if you're already speaking, but
okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
Sorry about that. So hello, I'm Marcus Sabadello from Danube Tech, and I'm presenting with my colleague Ganesh Anand from Digital Bazaar. Our project is Transatlantic SSI Interop. SSI stands for self-sovereign identity, sometimes also described as decentralized identity. It's a growing paradigm and idea in the digital identity community. It's about removing need for central authorities and intermediaries and placing control over your digital identity in the hands of individuals. And there are a lot of projects around the world right now working with this idea. And our project was about combining two experimental decentralized identity infrastructures, one in the US and one in the EU. In the US, we have the Department of Homeland Security funding some companies that are developing a digital version of the permanent resident card, also known as the green card that immigrants in the US would receive. And in the EU, there is EPSI-ESIF, that's the European Blockchain Service Infrastructure, and the European Self-Sovereign Identity Framework, which is connected to some very ambitious plans by the EU Commission to provide EU digital wallets to all people living in the EU. And there have also been some developments and pilot projects around digital diplomas, so digital versions of a diploma that you receive when you graduate from a European university. And both of these initiatives in the US and in the EU have some technology that is already deployed, and they have some narratives, some stories that are usually used to describe what can be done with these technologies. In the US, there's a common narrative around Louis Pasteur, who is an immigrant who works in the US. And in the EU project, there is a story around Eva, who is a student at a European university. There's some interesting technologies, decentralized identifiers, verifiable credentials. And so our project was about combining these two initiatives in the US and in the EU, both on the technical side and also trying to combine the different stories, the different narratives. Again, our companies are Tech in the EU and Digital Bazaar in the US. So we tried to come up with with two combined stories. One story about Eva, the student in the EU who graduates from an Austrian university, and then she wants to go to the US and apply for a visa. So we have a scenario where a European entity issues a digital credential, which is then used and verified in the US. And then we also did it the other way around. So we developed a second story around that immigrant in the US, Louis Pasteur, who receives some digital credential in the US, which he can then use in the EU, for example, when he applies for a PhD studies at a European university. So we combined the two infrastructures, both on the story level and also made it work technically. I can see some screenshots here. So on the left side, you see a demo version of Austrian University, the Technical University in Graz. You can see a page where the student receives a digital version of their diploma. In the middle, you see what this looks like when you receive your digital diploma. It gets stored in a wallet, in a digital identity wallet. And then on the right side, you can see a screenshot of a website representing the US Department of Homeland Security, where you can submit this digital credential, this diploma that you received from the EU university, and then it can be verified on the US side. For developing this, for implementing this, both our companies built a respective part of the infrastructure, the EU demonstration website and the US demonstration website. And we also used a digital wallet developed by Digital Bazaar, our US partner. And I was wondering if maybe Ganesh wanted to add some comments about that.
Sure, yeah. So it was a pleasure being a part of this NGIatlantic.eu project and furthering the work that Digital Bazaar was working on with the Department of Homeland Security around the digitization of the permanent resident card and showing how credentials such as that and other digital credentials can be stored in wallets in an interoperable fashion. And we further proved that when we were able to demonstrate being able to store a diploma for Ava in this fictional narrative about allowing her to use that diploma and then display or use it at a US facing site. And on that list as well, you see W3C test suites, a lot of the standards that are being used and developed against to ensure interoperability are being developed or have been standardized at the W3C, and there are test suites to ensure conformance to those. So a lot of work was done there to ensure that this proof of concept was done very smoothly. Back to you, Marcus. Thank you.
Thanks. Yes, so to summarize, I think this was a successful, interesting project to demonstrate interoperability on the between different technologies, different implementers, but also between different use cases and even different countries and continents. So you can see a photo of us when we met actually in person to collaborate in this. And there's a Medium post which also has links to a GitHub repository and a YouTube screencast of the project. I can paste this into the chat, and with that we'll say thank you.
Thank you, Marcus. And that is a very nice picture. Nice to see, I mean, people meeting in person, which we haven't seen in a long time. So thank you for the presentation. And it's now the turn of Rohit Bohara from Aspin, presenting physical unclonable functions for identification of large-scale distributed IoT assets. Thank you, Rohit.
Thanks a lot. I will share my screen. Okay. So, can you see my screen?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Christine. And I'm sorry if you hear a lot of noise because I'm at a conference and there are a lot of people. And yeah, thanks a lot for this opportunity. So here I'm going to present physical unclonable functions for identification of large-scale distributed IoT asset. So I represent Ashwin, and this project was, the proposal was submitted in Open Call 3 in NGIatlantic.eu with our project partner, East Carolina University. It was our US partner. And we got the funding for this project, and I'm very grateful to Jim and his colleague, Michael. They have been supporting us for the deliverable. So it's about IoT. So we have seen that in last 5 years, IoT has been widely adopted and it has been growing quite fast. We have seen that exponential growth of IoT devices, and none of the industry is untouched by the use of IoT technology. It's used for automation, optimization, for real-time data collections, and for monitoring of different types of services and products. So it has a lot of advantages. But at the same time, if you see IoT, it has a very large attack surface, and these IoT devices, because they have very small footprint, they cannot house a lot of computing resources, which means that they cannot run high computing or encryption algorithms also. So it makes them prone to cyber attacks, and then they don't use any authentication process. And the major problem with these IoT devices are that they use very static identities, string-based identities, and these identities are permanent, and which is not secure. So it opens the gates for security attacks, and they are becoming part of critical IoT infrastructure. So it's really important that each entity in the network is secure. And if we have unsecure IoT devices part of a critical industrial network, this is a great threat. So what we have done is at Ashwin we have developed an identification process which is based on ASRAM POOF. And what is POOF is, during the IC fabrication process, very minute to micro level, some variation takes place, and they cannot be controlled. And these, because of these minute variations, every transistor, it has different electrical properties. And here we have used SRAM based proof, which means that if you look at each cell of SRAM memory, they have mostly 3 transistors. And when we power on these SRAM chip, then because of the variation in each transistor, the SRAM cell gets a very random value. Even though it's a stable state, it reaches to a stable state, but it has a very random value. And we collect these random values, and with these random values, we create a fingerprint for that device. So this fingerprint, it behaves, it acts as a biometric identification that we use for humans. This fingerprint can be used for devices also. And based on this fingerprint, then we do bootstrapping process where a device becomes part of critical infrastructure. It is authorized based on this ID. So this was the solution that we developed at Ashwin. And in this NGI project, what we did, we wanted to do the scalability test on this solution. And it's not possible that we could deploy thousands of physical devices and test our platform. So what we did is we use US Bridges testbed, which is funded by NSF, and virtual wall testbed, which is funded by Fed for Fire, which is based here in Europe. So we emulated a Docker container as an IoT device, and we ran these Docker containers on a Kubernetes cluster. And this Kubernetes cluster we created on US Bridges testbed and Fed for Fire testbed. And then we were able to scale these number of pods or number of containers on Kubernetes cluster. And that way we were able to emulate 100,000s of devices on the cluster. And these devices then interacted with our platform using this secure bootstrapping process. And in the end, we collected this data and we analyzed it, and we found out that we found positive results, and this bootstrapping process was very scalable. So this was our objective, to stress test our solution, and we were able to, with the help of our US partner and the help of the US testbed and Fed for Fire testbed, we were able to achieve this objective. Yeah, so that's all from my side. And thanks a lot again for the opportunity.
Thank you, Rohit. And I'll now pass the floor to our next speaker, which is Mark Ruiz Ramirez from UPC. And he'll talk about experimental assessment of fast quantum key distribution.
Okay, thank you very much. Hope you can see my screen.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, all good.
Yeah, and you can see the screen. Eh?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to run to presentation mode. I hope it can goes. I don't know how to. I hope this is going to hide this. Anyway, well, I don't know how to hide this. Sorry, this.
I think it's all fine from our side.
Okay, perfect, good. So then, yes, as thank you for the introduction. So this is a collaborative cooperation between Universitat Politécnica de Catalunya and University of California, Davis. So this is a project that is from the third open call, and is an ongoing project and is arriving to the end. So we need to just now produce the final results. The main objective of this project was to experimentally demonstrate a proposal that from our research that is a novel quantum key distribution method that is based on artificial intelligence. I will try also to give some tips from our experience for the applicants. And on my first tip is regarding the composition of the consortium. No, at the end, I think that you need to find some kind of symbiosis between the two or the partners in the UE and the EU and the US part. And in our case, the experimental test that we want to set up is composed by some software elements and some hardware elements. So here at UPC, we were developing the software elements, specifically this A-based polarization distortion compensator module that we call fast QKD. That this is recently published in a journal paper. And then the US part in UC Davis, they have the testbed to be able to test and verify the assumptions that we did with our analytical and simulations, analytical models and simulations that we did here for the designing the software modules. The expected impact of this is to, at the end, to facilitate the deployment of these QKD systems by reducing the cost. The cost, basically, the reduction of the cost is to rely on software, some hardware components, so that you can simplify the design of the transmitters and the quantum transmitters and receivers. And also one more ambitious impact is to create this US experimental quantum communication laboratory. We are working on this because our idea is to continue extending this work for next calls and another funding initiatives. Basically, I don't want to enter into the details of this, but what we were proposing is to implement a machine learning based state of polarization tracker in the receiver of the quantum channel, just basically to detect the fluctuations that the photons that are sent with a given polarization, that are at the end the main elements of these row keys in quantum key distribution, to detect if these are suffering from some large deviation and correct that deviation. By applying this prediction of the state of polarization, we can track and anticipate some movements that are due to, for example, fiber shaking events like bending or shaking of the fiber. That this is something that can happen in aerial cables, and compare with other approaches that just apply a kind of reactive correction, subcompensation. Based on the measurements, we were achieving large benefits in terms of basically in terms of the final error in the distillation of the keys. That is the main effect or the main impact on the final key distillation rate. This is what we're doing, is a fast QKD system, because we can increase the secret key rate by reducing this QVR with artificial intelligence. So it's important when you are going to experimentally validate something, is to isolate what are the key components to do. No, so we were involved in the design of the conceptual architecture to be with the key elements, functional elements, to be demonstrated to basically validate all the components of the I-base protocol or the I-base mechanism. And this design is the design that has been developed, the design as hardware elements as a testbed in UC Davis. And also this testbed is introducing not only those components that should be, let's say, integrated in a commercial product in a future, if you think in how to lead this at the end as a final product, but also as all those elements that we simulated, for instance, in our simulations for emulating some fluctuations. Here, then, when you need to design what are the equipment you are going to need, maybe the equipment you are going to buy, you need to take into account also this, how you are going to reproduce things things that maybe you need to do it in a closed laboratory, in a closed environment that maybe are difficult to reproduce without a specific device. So this is something that I think that this is important to have into account when you prepare the proposal. And well, at the end, they develop all the deploy all the testbed to reproduce this architecture, to validate, to take the measurements, to compare with the simulations, and at the end to validate this fast quantum QKD system. So that's all from my side. So thank you very much for your attention. If you have more questions, you can send me an email and I will be happy to answer.
Thanks a lot, Mark, and thanks for sharing your tips for the future applications. It's very good to help others when we are doing something. And I will now move forward to our next speaker. We have Sachin Sharma from Technical University of Dublin presenting Atlantic EU Vision.
Thanks, Christina. So, can you see my slides? Yeah.
Yes.
Good, thank you. So I will talk about a project which was accepted in third open call. It's about Atlantic e-Vision. So here what we wanted to do, we actually wanted to test inter-testbed connectivity between EU and US. And we also wanted to test software-defined networking in IoT networks. So this project is actually written by a Technological University, Dublin, where I work, and UCD and UNL. So I'm Sachin Sharma. So the objective, as I told you, we wanted to test inter-testbed connectivity by performing experiments on EU and US testbeds. And we wanted to automatically configure software-defined networking where we control everything using software. So there is one of protocol here, OpenFlow. We wanted to test it in wireless ad hoc network. And third thing, we wanted to have a best data plane latency for an e-healthcare application. And we wanted to recover from a failure when it occurs in the network. So here, this is our scenario here. We wanted to connect EU testbed. So you see here, we have EU CityLab testbed in EU, and we have YLab testbed also in EU, and we have Powder testbed in the US, and we have also Cosmos testbed. And now we wanted to put a controller in the Cosmos testbed and wanted to control all the IoT networks which are there in different testbeds. So here, first thing is to automatically configure OpenFlow in these networks and then put some intelligence there so that best path could be selected when an IoT application talks with IoT devices. So here we will collect data from IoT devices, and then intelligent decisions will be taken from STN controller, which will be located somewhere in the US, which will be far away from EU devices. So here, at this moment, we have already made inter-testbed connectivity between CityLab, YLab, and also Powder. We first found out what is the topology of this inter-testbed connectivity, where we have research and development network, which is Belnet network in Belgium, and it connects with Internet 2 network in the US. So we have actually direct connectivity here. So it means that we can really do such experiments because currently if we see there are limitations in number of resources we can request from a testbed. So it means that if few resources are requested from each of the testbeds, then we can actually have big amount of resources and we can do a big experiment. So that's what the objective here is, to combine all the testbeds and to actually have a few nodes from everywhere and create a bigger experiment. So here what we did currently, so we actually deployed some STN switches in different test beds in virtual wall, in YLab in EU, and YLab 2 in EU, again in Belgium, and Powder in the US. And we located controller somewhere in the EU and also in the Powder. And then we collected some results. So we found that if controller is far away, because if it is in Powder, for example, it means that EU nodes will take long time to do some calculations. Like, for example, if the controller from the US wants to set up, data flows, so it means that it will take a long time for EU because it is far away located. So we calculated some inter-test bed results at this moment, and we have tested software-defined networking. And our next work is to actually, test machine learning algorithms there. And that's what we did it, and this is me. And if you have any questions, you can always email me here at Sachin.Sharma. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Sachin. And we have two last speakers, Alina Kadlubski from OpenAR Cloud and Felix Freitag. And I now pass the floor to Alina. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you, everyone, for this great opportunity that we all really appreciate. Without further ado, let me quickly. Just as a quick check, can you guys see my screen?
Yes, not in presenting mode, but yeah, now yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So yeah, as a quick introduction, I'm Alina Kadlubski. I'm Managing Director of OpenAR Cloud Europe, which is basically the European branch. We are a non-profit organization, so that's a bit different to some of our former speakers that were speaking before of me. And we are also got the funding within the third open call of the NGI project, and our project is still ongoing. So we're in the last 4 weeks. We have all the building blocks that we are developing together on the US side with Rutgers University, the Cosmos Lab, which is part of the open call. And then also we were quite fond to have an additional university, which is George Mason University, and Professor Bo Hahn and his team are actually working on an open source visual positioning service, which is quite important on various ends also on our side to be less dependent on private entities, and especially on mapping visual localization startups. So this will also, the outcome on this will also be implemented in our work. So regarding the vision of the project, basically an augmented reality AR cloud is about an enhanced version of the real world extended by persistent localization, which is what we, the OpenAR Cloud, by default implementing the geopose localization entity in this, which is a precise geolocation, 3-dimension of freedom, which is the universal standard that is currently developed within the OGC. And precise and persistent localizing anchored of digital objects in the physical world, and advance various components of our open spatial computing platform, which basically here in this little graphic you see a bit of the outline and what we, the OpenAR Cloud, have been working on the last couple of years, and now with the funding are able to actually deploy it in the Cosmos 5G testbed and produce tutorials and best practices for building and using the maps and space and in AR Cloud experiences. So we are using the funding to also create a new OSCP reference client, so an implementation into Unity, and build representative demo applications that basically allow virtual objects to be persistent throughout the space. So there's a huge, with the funding, there's a huge advancements in the, in further deploying this product. And also then at the end, everything will be on GitHub and open source, available for everybody to build up on. Sort of a little sort of cheat sheet for any applicants that are listening in today. What helped us a lot was going through the Twinning Lab pool and really finding the best partners. And I think I can speak for the rest of our team. We're quite fond with amazing US partners that actually we've bonded throughout the quite short time that we are currently discussing how can we sort of throughout the funding process further advance the product and further push our research. So we're actually currently discussing ways on further expand on the basics from this funding opportunity and further expand it throughout NGI, which is really, really great. And I think I can also speak for some of our former speakers that I think it's about finding the right partner and how you can join forces and then find actually partners for life in a way. So that's it in a nutshell. And if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out. Happy to answer any further questions. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Alina. And it's really great to know that the Twinning Lab was actually helping you connect with the partners. It's really the aim of it, and we are really glad and happy when we see that that people can get in touch with that. And I mean, the objective of NGIatlantic is to connect people and to bridge between EU and US. So that's great to hear. And we will now go to the last speaker of today, which is Felix Freitag with Lu Wei. I'm not sure if Lu is online, but I'll pass the floor to you, Felix. Thanks a lot.
Yes, hello. Can you unshare the screen so I can share mine?
Yes, I think, Alina, you need to stop sharing. Okay.
Okay, you can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, my name is Felix Freitag. I'm from the Technical University of Catalonia, and we have made this project FleshNet from the third open call. We are a consortium of 3 partners. So with us from Barcelona, we are the Texas Tech University and the Mississippi State University from the US. So this project is on the topic of federated learning. Federated learning is very popular and interesting machine learning paradigm. Advantage is that machine learning is done locally, so the private data does not have to leave the node, and this gives a lot of opportunities to integrate machine learning in the IoT. So federated learning is pretty popular nowadays. What we want to address in this project is to see how federated learning behaves in a heterogeneous environment, in a real environment and not in a simulation tool. So the project basically has two tasks. We make designs for the federated learning protocol, and then we do the experimentation in a test bed and see how this design behaves, analyze the results, and update our design. The test bed that we are using, we had it already before. This is a deployment of mini PCs in a wireless mesh network in Barcelona. So this was available before, but during the project, we noticed that for the experimentation, we had to work a bit on this test bed, especially for the automation of the experiments, because it's very time consuming to make real deployments and measure. So we needed to add some tools to make it easier and more automated to make the experimentation. And well, then the project is basically doing these experiments, making new designs, implement the new designs, and deploying the code on these distributed nodes that you see on the top of this slide. And yes, and we have measurement tools, and we collect the results, and we found some interesting insights, I think, some interesting results from the scientific point of view that we also could publish with the US partners. So we made a joint paper with this new group, or with new partners for us. And I think these are all the slides I have. Yeah, if you have questions or comments, please contact anybody of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Felix, and thank you all really for the amazing, interesting presentations. And I think with that, first of all, thank you also for staying longer. That means you were really interested. So we're really glad that we had you there until the end. And if you have any questions, any comments, please feel free to drop them in the chat, or raise your hand. If we have a couple of minutes, Jim, I guess we can answer those. But anyway, we will share the recording, and for any other question, feel free to drop us an email, and we will try to address them as quickly as possible. Thank you. I'll leave the floor to you, Jim and Ruben.
Okay, thank you, Christina, and thank you everyone for staying so long. And as I mentioned earlier, there are still a number of slides which I won't go through right now, but we'll be sharing the slides in the next few days. And there's many more FAQs and some more lessons learned that should help. Plus, we have an FAQ on the website, and our email contacts are in the presentation. So I'd also like to thank very much Deep Mehdi for his presentation on the DCL, and for having the DCL with NGIatlantic.eu. It's been a game changer, I must say, in bringing on board many more US partners. So thanks for that. So Ruben, do you have anything you want to conclude with?
No, just that basically the recording will be ready tomorrow, and during the day, probably in the afternoon, will be uploaded on the webinars page. So the same place where the webinar was promoted, it will be the same, having the full recording of the webinar. Otherwise, you can always go on our YouTube channel. For sure, you will find it there. And if you follow us on Twitter, you can also check our Twitter page, and we'll post the recording on Twitter as well.
Yes, there's just a couple of questions here, Ruben. Okay, one is on, are the topics BX or are some of the topics A projects? Yes, some of them actually were in A plus B, okay? In actual fact, many of the projects have had sort of an A plus B component. I believe there was one in particular in Open Call 4, which was just the experimental platform interconnection topic. And typically the budgets for those are much lower because they're just doing an interconnection, and then it'll be available for other projects to sort of come on top of those. But this, I'm glad you asked this question, because one thing I meant to say earlier when I was presenting the topics, a question that comes up quite regular, in fact, I received it today, was can you have multiple topics, multiple B topics, let's say, and that is absolutely fine. In fact, we just ask that you list the topics, and then you can just explain how you are addressing multiple topics in your application. And we have had a number of really good projects that have done multiple topics. Of course, we've had very good ones doing just focusing on one topic as well, but you can have multiple topics. There's a question here on the difficulties encountered during your project's performance periods, if you had some, and how you managed the risk to avoid their impacts. Maybe I'll open the floor maybe to some of our projects to discuss this, but maybe I can just say from our perspective, what we do is we have a 3 deliverable system. So we have the first deliverable, which is due at the end of the first month. If it's a 6-month project, it'll be at the end of the first month. And this deliverable is where the project team sets out the experimental plan. And then in the midterm of the project, there's D2. And this is the interim report on how the experiments have been implemented as per the original plan. And then, so we have a review process where the project team reviews these deliverables. And then we have a dedicated meeting with the project team, and we go through all of the reviews. And if they have any problems, we see if there's any solutions, or sometimes we can provide some contacts with other external collaborators. And then the D3 at the final part is the final deliverable about all of the the final experimental plan, and that has a public component to it as well, which is then published as a final deliverable. So I don't know if any of our project people would like to address the question about if there was any difficulties that you remember during your projects, and how how these were resolved, or how you managed to avoid the risk. Is there anyone that wants to raise this, or no?
Hi, this is Mark from UPC. Well, I don't know if I'm going to ask that question in principle, specifically, but at least we had some issues that were planned, no? in the risk, that in the contingency analysis we did for the deliverable 1. And I think that this is important when you, for instance, you have problems when you ship some specific devices or some specific equipment that maybe can have some delivery time that maybe is larger than the one you expected, or you want to use some old material I mean, oh, material. Let's say you want to use some material that you have already in your lab, but maybe some equipment that you are not usually using that. So when you put this in operation again, sometimes you discover things that are not working as you expected, no? And you need some extra time to repair or to calibrate or whatever. So I think that this is important for the contingency plan, to take into account this and to have alternatives, to propose some alternatives in case that these things happen. So this is what I can say. And basically, if these are these kind of reasonable things, at least from our experience, these are well, let's say, in the evaluation, in the intermediate evaluations, that there are things that are completely understood that can happen. And if you put all your effort in doing the things, and then for whatever thing something is delayed because you receive a new equipment later than the expected date, or you have you need to account for an extra time to do some kind of adjust or calibration of some equipment you have. These are typical risks, I think, that can happen in several topics that are reasonable to be there. But you need to consider it when you do the contingency plan.
Yes, and one thing that we have allowed, because the NGI initiative promotes itself as being sort of agile and flexible, more so than kind of the more rigid H2020 or other EC program. We have been allowing short-term extensions, without too much admin bureaucracy involved, in the cases like as Mark has described, in case there were some issues with equipment being delivered, delays and things like that. So now, of course, in Open Call 5, this may end up being a bit tricky because of the looming end date of our project itself. So it may not be as flexible as we would like, but this is another way that we've been able to mitigate some of the risks that have come up. Is there anyone else that wants to mention anything? Okay.
I could add like a small thing maybe, since
Sure.
I mean, assuming that those might also be most of the project 5 will be around 3 months. So obviously it's a really short time. So obviously the team is super excited at the beginning and you want to do everything, but then, you sort of end up in reality and you need to compromise a lot on various ends. So this is also quite important to sort of set some benchmarks. What are the needed sort of achievable things, and then what are the cherries on top that would be nice to have. So taking the time into account, because this is also from our experience, it's a really, especially since we're using the funding to actually develop a new product. So we're actually developing new code. And this is quite, in such a 3-month project, it's not that much time. So yeah, I mean, I'm glad that we have such a great team that's kicked it off, and now we're taking all the puzzle pieces together, but take that into account. It's really, really a short time.
Okay, thank you, Alina. There's a question here about using the fund to buy hardware. One of my FAQ questions is about the funding categories, and there is no funds allowed for equipment. It's just personnel costs, travel costs, and then there's a flat rate of 25% indirect costs. Okay. And then I just wondered whether how long was the duration of collaboration visits from the previous grant recipients in terms of the travels themselves. From the ones I've seen, and there hasn't been too many because of the COVID situation, obviously, but from the ones I've seen, they're typically, 1 week duration or thereabouts. I'd have to check them, to be exact, but I seem to recall 1 week duration. Okay. Okay, well, thanks again, everyone. And the recordings and the presentations will be available shortly, and we'll let you know when that is. Okay. So, and thanks to my colleagues, Christina and Ruben, for organizing everything.
Thanks a lot, Jim.
Great job. All right. Thank you and have a good evening.
Bye-bye.
Good rest of the day in America.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Have a nice
you.
evening.
Bye.
Bye
Have a
bye.
rest of the day. Bye.
Bye bye.